Everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Christy O'Connor of Art Hustle. I'm continuing the conversation today of American gun culture and violence with Gusty Kincaid. Gusty is currently exhibiting with us now through September 19th in our current exhibition, Thoughts and Prayers, Another Round of Vacant Stares, in collaboration with Shishama Madawan. This exhibition is an analysis on the American gun culture. Gusty Kincaid was born south of the Mason-Dixon line prior to 1950. His paternal grandfather was a carpenter. His father was a machinist and a shoemaker. His maternal grandfather was a fundamentalist Christian evangelist. His mother was a housewife who had been raised from infancy with the help of a formerly enslaved woman. Both parents were avid amateur photographers who taught him the basics of that craft, which he later applied in a long career. After a college background in engineering and history, Kincaid was an infantryman in the U.S. Army, where he earned an expert badge in rifle marksmanship. After moving to an eastern metropolis, he spent several years training in commercial photography. Kincaid next entered the fine arts field, where he spent the next 40 years photographically documenting works of art from all the world's cultures, first as a museum staffer and then as a freelancer. As a young man, a modicum of self-reflection gradually brought the uneasy realization that being born male, Caucasian, and American conferred many undeserved privileges not enjoyed by a majority of the world's population. Steeped in the theories of Jungian and archetypal psychology, he is a practicing Buddhist. While his spiritual home is in the Beartooth Pass region of Wyoming, Kincaid currently lives with his wife of 47 years near the Appalachian Trail. Gusty, it's great to see you this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
So, Gusty,
great to be here.
Oh, thank you. So, you have an extensive career in various fields, and it feels like you've almost lived several different types of lives, from the infantry to professional photographer to museum staffer.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all have a congress of personalities within us. The trick is trying to bring to life the ones that want to be expressed in a positive way and try to integrate them somehow, give them all a proper voice at the right time.
Mm. Tell me about your museum work. You worked as a museum staffer as well?
I did. Yeah, for around 10 years, I was a museum staffer. And I learned a tremendous amount about the art world because this museum had a lot of different things in it from different cultures. And so I got my chops together there. And I was always pestering curators when they would come to the photo session, which they did once in a while. I'd say, well, why is this work of art important? What's the big deal about this artist? And all of them were forthcoming, and they would love to engage and tell me something about what it is what they wanted photographed and why particular angles. Some are very specific. So I learned a great deal about how to observe art and translate it into photographic images for catalog reproduction from those curators.
That's real. Oh wow, that's really interesting. So was your primary job at the museums documenting the work that was exhibited there primarily?
Yep, exactly. Sometimes it was record shots, but increasingly color photography came into its own during the period in the 70s when I was doing this, and more and more catalogs were being produced for big exhibitions, traveling exhibitions, and so forth. That was the heyday of that, where shows would come from around the country or overseas. So they would be able to generate sales of catalogs through the photography.
And so while you were working at the museums, did you begin your own art practice at that point, or when did you start making your own artwork?
Oh, off and on from the 60s. You know,
Mm.
I was shooting with 35mm cameras, and it was a question of how much time and commitment and energy and process I could put into my own work, working full time and sometimes overtime for many years. And then when I started my own business as a freelancer, there's a good deal of time spent in marketing and calling people, trying to get work. You know what it's like.
Yeah.
So just
So
around the edges, I would be photographing. But I always loved travel photography, and I had a number of overseas trips from my museum work, and I was able to do some snap shooting of travel work on my own, and those ended up with one of the stock agencies leasing photographs of foreign countries. So that was a good bit of supplemental income and a nice way to engage with other cultures too and learn more about the world.
Nice. And so, so you did photography for a very long time. Are you still, do you still do photography, or have you fully transitioned into the art practice that you are currently in?
Mostly I'm doing the Gusty's Gun World work. I do a little bit of photography, but it's pretty much confined to a still life setup in my basement. So, and I'm spending a lot of time editing a lot of the travel photographs I did in Europe. And I want to create a series of small books.
Oh, nice.
Self-publishing.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes a few hours a week to do.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about Gusty's Gun World?
Gusty's Gun World was a project that kind of crept up on me. The impetus was the massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut, with all the kindergartners and the educators who were murdered.
Yeah. And
that was the first piece that I did. I felt, as a photographer, I didn't know what to do about that, right?
Yeah.
I just had photographs. We'd seen a lot of photographs of people crying and firemen carrying children around and people hugging and so forth, but I didn't have any of that. So I guess it came in a dream to create this abstract piece about a colored gun cabinet, which is also an alchemical oven. I won't go into the symbolism of it, but it's on my website. And from there, it just kind of disappeared. I thought, well, I got this one piece. But then sometime later, there was the vote by the Senate rejecting very simple, basic laws which would have restricted access to high-capacity magazines and AR-15 type weapons. They rejected any bill. And so from that, I created a piece I called Senator B.B. Brain Gun Lobby, who is in the pocket of the gun makers and the NRA. So that's also on the website. Slowly over the years, more ideas, most of them just appeared in dreams related to incidents that I've read about in the news. And I would sketch them out and try some of them out. Many were stupid and very obvious, and two were too impractical to make and too bulky. But with the advice of my wife, we culled it down to a number of pieces which I have made over the years, both three-dimensional and two-dimensional. I still have a list of 50 or 60 more, which I may get to. But
yeah,
that's mainly the impetus.
That's yeah. So I think at this point, I want to start talking about the work that you have in the exhibition. One of the pieces, Stump Speech, you were inspired by what Donald Trump had said during the 2016 elections, and about shooting anyone on Fifth Avenue and being able to get away with it. And
Right.
if you wanted to share that video, just to give viewers a reminder of that jarring statement.
Right. Okay, I'll do that now. It's just a few seconds long.
Smart. And you know what else they say about my people, the Poles? They say I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
Okay. Yeah, that was pretty amazing to me.
Yeah.
So,
And it feels like it's becoming more and more true.
it is, and he seems to keep well. He invited somebody at the Republican convention last night, who the couple who had been waving their pistols at peaceful protesters in the St. Louis suburb.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we all are fine with guns. Get them out there and wave it at people. It's horrifying to me.
It's really scary, just the whole general principle of I feel like the whole structure is if you're a gun owner, you have every right to threaten and scare anyone who's not you. And that's not really, that's not a democracy that I want to be a part of.
Oh, I know. Well, some gun owners,
Yeah.
I have to insert that some many gun owners are sensible, rational people. Right?
I think what I mean
right.
to say is the people on the extreme end of the conversation.
Yeah. And it's fear generated from the top, from the chief executive of the country, which is nuts to me.
Yeah.
This is his base. He just says anything he can to get reelected.
It's true. But I want to share the piece that inspired that sentence, which is titled "Stump Speech."
Okay.
And Gusty, can you see the website?
I can.
Okay, so can you tell us about Stump Speech?
All right. The piece, as it says here, is 38 inches long, 16 inches wide, 30 inches high. It's built on a double plywood plinth for rigidity because I'm at an actual tree stump, which was an old pear tree that had fallen in a windstorm in our backyard. So I used that as a stump, and it's riddled with thousands of bullets of all shapes and sizes. As we know, Stump Speech originally was boilerplate language that traveling politicians would use in their rounds to generate interest. So this is an oblique view, and I took Trump's statement, I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? And I superimposed that on a shot of a crosswalk in a street near our house. And in the foreground is, if you go to the next picture, you see that the tableau has come true. This horrible idea, George Washington lies bleeding in the middle of Fifth Avenue, and other founding brothers are standing around in horror looking at them. If you go down, you can see who they are. The bobblehead figures I just used. We've got Alex Hamilton on the left, and James Madison, John Adams, Ben Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson. It's like staring at each other. What has happened here? So this is my fantasy of the worst that could happen. That in a sense, Trump has shattered the democratic foundations and institutions through this, this gun stuck into a microphone, basically blasting it out and shooting this, the founding father.
And
so that was the impetus of that.
I was gonna say, I feel as though this piece perfectly embodies the statement that he made, and the fact that the title "Stump Speech" is, I think, brilliant. for, you know, obvious reasons, you know, originally stumping, you know, the stump speech was the speeches politicians would do to get their voters, and that's what he was doing.
Yep.
And I have to ask, did you just happen to have those bobbleheads?
No, I bought them from some outfit that sold them. I bought them
Okay.
new and just I mounted them.
Did like
I even have a little. I'm sorry. I even have a little fan to blow on them to try to get them to move.
That's funny. And did you know you wanted to use bobbleheads for this piece, or was that
No, originally
thing?
the gun and the microphone was down on the street level where the bobbleheads are now, pointing at the stump, and I just scattered a lot of empty casings of bullets around on the street. But it really didn't say what I wanted to, so I reconfigured it. Thought of the bobbleheads, which meant, of course, I had to modify the case, the crate for it.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
this is its final iteration.
Yeah. And is that an actual pistol?
I don't use any actual pistols. There are lots of plastic firearms, places like Kids Army and other online places where you can order plastic guns.
Mm.
And then I treat them and paint them. I don't have any real firearms in the house.
Although that's very disconcerting. It does look almost like a real gun. That you can find that on a kid's toy website.
Yep.
So let's take a look at Trayvon Martin's candy gun. So by the way, just so those who are watching knows, Gusty's work is featured on the virtual exhibition on our website at arthustle.net, on our Kunstmatrix website. And unfortunately, it does not do the images themselves justice the way you photographed them here. But this is titled Trayvon Martin's Gun, Brutal Attack Weapon. Can you tell us about this piece?
Sure. We all know what happened to Trayvon Martin. He went out to 7-Eleven shopping one January night, and I believe it was 2012. He's a 17-year-old African-American male, and he came back home, and a neighborhood watchman thought him suspicious. And ignoring orders, I'll just read this, ignoring orders received by phone from a local emergency dispatcher, the vigilante closed on Mr. Martin. Although Trayvon Martin had apparently committed no crime, the vigilante confronted him. A scuffle ensued, during which the assailant shot and killed Trayvon Martin. When police searched Mr. Martin's body a few minutes later at the crime scene, they found a bag of candy that we all know that was Skittles, but I'm not going to use Skittles in the title because I don't want to get sued by the people who make Skittles. So I've used what are called PLA buttons to create this piece. At trial, Mr. Martin's killer was given a verdict of not guilty, both of second-degree murder and manslaughter. The jury interpreting the killer's action as self-defense under Florida's Stand Your Ground law. In May 2016, the vigilante assailant auctioned a handgun used to kill Mr. Martin, describing it as an American firearm icon he had used to quote in the brutal attack from Trayvon Martin. So this piece is an ironic mockery of that iconic lethal handgun, because the bag of candy, I guess he mistook for a gun.
Mm-hmm. So, Gusty, did you draw did you make this piece originally in response to the trial hearing, or did it come after when you heard about the assailant auctioning off his gun?
After the trial, I believe that really cemented it, because actually Trayvon Martin was murdered before the Sandy Hook massacre. But at the trial, I thought, this is outrageous that they didn't convict this guy of any crime. So, by the way, the hand behind it, I just scanned my own hand and made a print of it as though he's like stop, don't shoot.
Mm. And
So
so,
if you slide down, you see a three-dimensional view of it, an oblique view.
and this is a really interesting piece, and I'm really disappointed I didn't get to see this in person.
I know. I'm disappointed it didn't get shipped to the exhibition.
Yeah. So I really wanted to know more about the process of the glass and the PLA buttons and what that looks like in person, because it is hard to see, you know, from a computer screen.
I created a mock-up in Photoshop first, and actually that's available as a print. That's slightly different from this, but I took the design to a place that makes plastics, and they cut the pieces for the acrylic base and background. Then I went to another outfit, and because I have an unsteady hand these days, I asked them to glue the pieces in the sequence following my template. And then I just made a print, framed it, and hung it on the wall behind it. And then ordered the shelf brackets online.
So,
by the way, I would say I have a $3 term for my work. I call it sculptage, because I think it's a notch above just assemblage of found pieces, but it's not nearly as finished as polished sculpture work would be, because I don't have the skills to do that.
I like that term, sculptage.
I use a combination of found things and store-bought things and electricity and paint and pigment and rough carpentry.
There's nothing wrong with that. I have to ask, are the PLA buttons inside the glass, or are they on the outside, and are they a little three-dimensional?
They're three-dimensional little dome-shaped pieces that are glued on.
Interesting. So, and then there was another piece that we wanted to take a look at, and that was, let's see if I can find it.
The art shooting gallery.
The art shooting gallery, that's it. This is a really interesting piece too. And I have to ask, the way you describe your work, works of art that articulate Americans' gun culture by ruminating Socratic artist. Could you tell us more about that? Tell us more about that phrase.
Well, I spent a lot of time ruminating and thinking about things.
Yeah.
It's sort of a philosophical approach to life. And the idea of it being Socratic artists, Socrates was famous for asking questions, very provocative questions. He didn't supply a whole lot of answers. So that's basically what I want to do. I want to provoke people with this series of works into them asking themselves questions about maybe my approach to life and guns needs some kind of modification. There are other points of view to consider besides just the Second Amendment and my freedom to have as many guns and as much ammo as I want. So that's the idea behind this.
Perfect. I love that though. You know, it's all about thinking and having trying to give more perspective than just your own.
Right.
So,
okay, what I did here, I had to composite these individual pieces in an old, I put them together, isolated them in Photoshop because I didn't have a proper studio to do the whole setup very well. But you get the idea. In the foreground is a kneeler where participants can kneel at the gun table and fire at the triptych behind, which is a retable. And we can look later at more detail of what that's involved. But what I say here is that A small but powerful group of American gun devotees pursue their hobby with a narrow-minded fervor of religious ideologues. In so doing, they denigrate cultural values of the majority, as though taking pot shots at a carnival arcade. The art shooting gallery depicts these two attitudes, the distortions of gun worship mixed with the frivolity of an amusement park. So if you want to slide down, we'll look at a little close-up of the triptych here.
Yeah.
So on the left are all these images, by the way, are things that I photographed a lot of these things originally, and some I created in the computer in Photoshop. But the ones on the left wing are all from the animal kingdom.
Mm.
And the ones in the center are iconic images, some scanned from online and some that I photographed, but all treated and reversed and printed on little pieces of foam core. And the foam core pieces are hung together, strung together on fishing line with swivels between each one.
Ah.
So underneath the gun table, if you slide back up, you won't be able to see it from this angle, but on the far side, underneath the gun table, the doors open up and there's an oscillating fan that blows back and forth slowly and makes all those images slowly twirl around.
Oh, wow.
And then the running lights around red, white, and blue lights give it more of a carnival atmosphere.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep going down, and you can see the left wing a little bit better, some of the animals, and some of the treatment on the right. This guy in the bottom center of that image is, he's, I think, a Hindu god. I put an AR-15 in his hand.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was going to say that looks like a sculpture, but not with the...
Right.
Yeah.
And all these on the right I created in Photoshop or from my own photographs, like the thing at the top left, slide up just a little bit. All that scribbling is like Cy Twombly thing, but his always looked like it should be a little story, so I added the end to this one. I don't know if he would approve, but other pieces reminiscent of Malevich and the homage to the square, and of course the famous flags, but I've got Six Flags, which is the name of a New Jersey, you know well, the carnival place.
Yeah.
And then I drew the Alexander Calder piece in Photoshop. Others, and then Mr. Squiggle in the lower right, I forgot his name. So these all twirl in the breeze. If you slide down a little more, you'll see.
Oh, wow.
This fellow in the front, keep going.
Keep going down?
Yeah, keep going
Okay.
down a little bit. Okay. Swiftly release effective force, friend. That's an invitation to shoot. But basically, what are people doing when they're firing guns? They're releasing the effective forces within. But I put it in sort of a formal phrase to make it a little prissy. This character here I call the Blackfoot Samurai Clown Pope, because you see the hand on his face is a Blackfoot image of the Blackfoot tribe when they were going out in battle. Made him into a bit of a samurai type with the clown hair and a Pope's mitre. He might remind you of somebody who is a bigwig in one of the gun clubs. Executive director of one of those gun clubs.
I'm not sure who.
Well, think
The only
about
one,
it.
the only one I really know about is Jean LaPierre.
exactly.
Oh, okay.
I just modified his face.
Oh, okay. Oh, now you know what? I was so distracted by the hair.
Well, I removed his glasses
Yeah.
and added these other things. And there's a red light bulb on his nose.
Mm.
That's modified. So, and if you go down a little bit further, we'll look at the guns, which I've decorated.
Oh, wow.
As,
I didn't notice the Crayola crayons in there.
yeah, these are actually sandbags I bought online that are used for gun rests. The ones on the top and the bottom sandbags, but instead of bullets, I put Crayolas in, and then I decorated the guns as though 20th century artists might have got hold of them, the different motifs.
Oh, yeah, I see. I see that. Yeah.
And if you go down a little farther, you'll see the sandbags.
What are the titles of the books you have there?
Slide down a little more, you'll see them. There's another photograph.
Oh, okay.
Well, this is more of the detail.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I have my wife to thank for coming up with these titles.
Yeah.
She's the literary master of the family.
Wow.
So she worked in gun brands. And then this is another joke that gave me, I spent a lot of time thinking about picking the typeface that would be appropriate to different styles of art. So like Rococo style is 1 to the 9th power. You know, that means you end up with 1. 1 times 1 times 1 is still 1. So that's what Rococo style largely means to me. All the elaborate filigree doesn't really always add that much to the basic design. It's just frou-frou. Some people may see it. Romanticism, 1 + 1 times 100 is a huge amount. So the romantic impetus in life and art is expansive. Minimalism, on the other hand, 1 - 1 divided by 100 is, you can't get smaller than 0.
Yeah.
Social realism is equality, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. Cubism, that's just a crazy formula taking elements that you might find in a statistical formula. And then surrealism is infinity + 1, which is sort of crazy. How do you get larger than infinity? And then finally, Dada is the ultimate irrational number, the square root of -1.
I really appreciate the amount of detail you put into your work and thought process in even what you would think would be a minute part of the work. Like, this is like, you wouldn't think of the sign itself to be a feature of the piece, but you made it that way so that every element is equally important. And
you see that black box?
Yeah.
That's an ammo box. So I wrote on each facet, ammo amas amat, the Latin conjugation. But I used AMMO for ammo instead of AMO. Just a little wink at the classicists in the audience.
Nice. And this is just to clarify for our audience, this is a life-size piece, correct?
Right, yes. The triptych and altar, 98 inches wide, 78 inches high, 24 inches deep. It's a big hunk of work.
And would you say that if this was set up in a gallery, would this be an interactive piece that people could come up to and touch the guns, or no?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. If I had more wits about me electronically, I would set up the guns so that they would fire laser shots randomly at the triptych, but I've not mastered that. I may have to hire somebody to help me with that someday.
Yeah, I really appreciate the details that you put into this work. Like I said, you make every single element equally important, and I think a lot of artists don't necessarily do that, or
Thank
especially
you.
with something it's so large scale.
Well, yeah, I wanted to convey the whole impact. For example, the two tables spent a lot of time working on marbleizing with very fine brushes to get a faux marble look to them.
Mm.
And in on the kneeler, you see, I don't know if you can make it out, there's a silhouette of a handgun on each end of the kneeler.
Oh wow! And I'm glad you pointed that out, because when I saw it, it kind of reminded me of horse heads, and I didn't think they were guns.
That's that way from here. Add another detailed photograph.
Wow. So, Gusty, is there anything else on your website you'd like for me to share?
What else would be? If you had very quickly, there's one called a distress flag.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty easy to talk about. Now it's hanging vertically, and it's got this crazy device sitting on the floor in front of it that's part of it. And I'll explain what those pieces are. If you scroll back up, I'll tell you why it's in the position it is. It's in a distress position, being vertical, and the blue union field to the right signals a mode of dishonor.
Mm.
And to me, that was caused by the American Congress being in partnership with the arms industry. So I took a bunch of plastic guns I bought online, spray painted them red in my garage, and hung lots of red ribbon as blood that collects in the sink. And when the blood comes out, it goes through a red hose, which you can see in the next shot a little bit better, a different angle. Well, not
So
that
go
one.
down.
This is a detail. We can go back up and I'll show you the stars are bullets actually.
The stars up here.
Down a little bit, yeah. Yeah, the stars are made of bullets.
Oh. Oh my goodness! I didn't even see that.
Yeah,
You
they
see
look
what I
like
mean?
stars.
Look at you with all with. I find when I'm so glad I'm here talking to you today, because there's things about you, elements of your work that I wouldn't have noticed if we hadn't spoken.
Good. Okay, you slide down a bit. Maybe you see it a little better in the next detail. Keep going. Now the next shot, yeah, there at the bottom.
In the bottom, okay.
Keep sliding down. Can you go down more? Keep there.
Okay.
Slipped up. Keep going up. You'll see the hose comes out of the sink and connects to this device here, which I bought online, a DeVilbiss purifier of some sort, probably from the 1940s. And then I built this, what do they call these trucks? It's a monster wagon, right? So I built that from scratch with parts from Home Depot and Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight, right? So you look at the red things on the back are gun clips.
Yeah.
Right, and then mounted on the side is a little gun. So slide down a little bit more. The blood comes into the piece. Down a little more. There you go. So the tissue paper on the left is blood money, and then it gets filtered through and dumped into the jar on the right, which is real money. All right. And then slide down a little bit further, and you can see motif that I use on some of my pieces one more. Done a little more. You see the soldier and then the American Indian.
Mm.
I call them American Indians because that's largely what they call themselves.
Mm.
My wife has worked as an editor with various Native American authors, and she said to me, asked them once, what do you call yourselves? And they said, well, we call ourselves Crow or Blackfoot or Apache or Indians. That's what everybody else calls us. So why not use that? We don't care about this Native American stuff.
Mm. So I notice on this piece that it looks like there's something on the ankle of the soldier.
Yes, he's been shot. He's bleeding.
Ah, very interesting. So I'm going to stop the share.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, again, Gusty, I just want to reiterate the fact that I really do appreciate all of the details you put into your work. And like I said, every time I'm looking at your work, I'm finding something new that I didn't see before. And you know, lots of artists do that, but I feel like the way that the elements are hidden in your work are done in such thoughtful and surprising ways that it really does surprise me when I realized what I'm seeing.
Well, I really appreciate your remarks. Thank you. If you had a couple of minutes, I could take over the screen and show you some snapshots of my new studio, if that's appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let me see if I can get them up, and I'll walk through that. Let me close a couple of these things. Up. Now, is this very large?
Yeah, that's a good size.
Okay, this is the entrance. I have to thank my wife for finding this house with this incredible space with a studio, which has a driveway to double doors in the basement.
Oh, wow.
The former owner of the house designed it because he used to work on his vintage sports cars in the basement here. So the ceiling lighting was already there and the foundation. All I had to do was electrify it and put up insulation and the wall board. So this is the entrance. There's a table where I sometimes do some encaustic.
This is a great workspace. I'm jealous.
Oh, I'm very happy with it. This is a space where I can do some soldering on this workshop here, on this tabletop here. Let me go ahead and open up more of these.
So are you very organized when you work, Gusty?
Yeah, I spend too much time getting ready. You know, I have to, it kind of drives me crazy if I can't find things and I give up too quickly. So this is the general painting area. Most everything is on wheels, so I can move it around in case there's a flood in the basement, which we have had briefly when lightning struck the house and burst the water heater pressure valve.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, this is the paint stuff over here. Over on the left is a grinder and a small vise for metalworking. This board here in the middle flips up at a 30-degree angle. Next is
I see.
floor drill press, which I'm very proud of.
Nice.
Although when I was unpacking it, this piece here fell out of the package on my foot and broke several toes.
Oh, no.
A year ago. Yeah, pretty stupid. I wasn't wearing my hard-toed shoes. But once I got it together, it works beautifully. Another slight view toward the back. This piece here in the middle is on wheels. And I did this because I got tired of walking back and forth to the wall to get a clamp or a roll of tape or something. So this thing can roll anywhere in the shop into where I'm working or get out of the way.
Did you build it yourself?
I'm sorry?
Did you build that yourself?
I did.
I knew it.
Yeah. See, a lot of time getting ready. So at the far end, I have a photography area where I can move these things out of the way if I need to shoot something large. In the foreground is a workbench I built. Little stereo system.
Wow. So in regards to your photography, have you, the photography that you do now, have you switched fully to digital, or do you still do analog still?
I'm all digital. I just sold my last Scenar View camera last year. My pride and joy. My $5,000 camera sold for about $500.
Oh, wow.
I hung on to it a little too long to get much value, but got something for it.
Yeah.
No, I started with transitioning when Canon came out with their first full frame digital sensor. So when was that? 2005, I guess. But for the first couple of years, some of my clients in the museum world were not trusting of digital. So they'd send me on location to a collection with a 4x5 and a digital camera. I had to shoot everything twice.
Oh, jeez.
It took longer, but I made more money.
Oh, well, there you go.
So here's another piece of workshop. And here's the next piece I'm working on. It's called An Ironic Lung, or the Ardent Armageddonite. It'll be based on the idea of an iron lung that a prepper is occupying. And you see
wow.
the base I have built and decorated in camouflage. And this piece here, the iron lung piece, plywood, which I built, will also be decorated in camouflage. This piece here will be the lid, will flip over 90 degrees, of course, and be open. And I was unable to bend that plywood. I bought that piece and assembled it. So in the lid, it'll be lined with firearms, right? And inside will be some elements from this collection here, which will populate his unformed being, his unintegrated self. There'll be a doll's house that I got from Walmart, some little girls' dolls and doll dresses, some little animals and action figures, you know. So it's a mixture of the tender and the aggressive. And then this will be the head stuck on the end with a gas mask over his face. And up here is a cap. You can't read it, but the cap I bought at a truck stop. It says, "When I snap, you'll be the first to go."
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So that's, so back to the studio area. This is another closer view of the rolling pegboard I built. This is the back side of it.
Wow. I mean, just your studio equipment is so impressive.
You know, I got all these clamps because I'd hired somebody to build crates in the beginning, and they're very expensive, as you know. So I started buying plywood and lumber and building my own, and to basically save money. Here's the saw room, where it's a separate room just for sawing and sanding, so to keep this away from the paint shop with an air filter on the wall. Then there's also so here are the crates.
Wow.
The ready to go. And
you are organized.
and here's a storage area.
Now, you need to get a solo show with all of your works. You're ready to go.
I would love it. You know, what my great fantasy is that if I could get connected with one of the outfits that has a nonprofit status and they would co-sponsor me, then maybe I could raise money from somebody who's wealthy enough to do that.
Mm.
There are more and more mall spaces that are open, like where your exhibit is. And in my neighborhood, there are some. So it would make sense for it just to do a pop-up show for a month.
Yeah, actually, that would actually be a really interesting space to have an exhibit with your with the work that you have in there, in like a mall space where there's like a general public walking in, not necessarily an artist.
Right.
Especially with I'm thinking of particularly the large triptych piece we were talking about with oh, you know, with the circus guns and whatnot.
Right.
Like
right.
just someone walking in and seeing that.
That needs a good sized space for people to walk around and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And see the details. I know that there's a mall in Vermont, a friend of mine exhibits at from time to time, that has a gallery in a mall, a strip mall.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty successful, apparently. I think a lot of those stores are still open, I guess. So.
Very nice. So, would you be able to stop? There you go.
Yeah, I did. Sorry, I just figured that out.
That's okay. Yeah, so I just want to thank you for taking the time today to talk to me
Well,
about
thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.